Don't commit to things you can't follow through on now because of how you're feeling. But at the same time, don't decide to not try for things because of all the what ifs. Because everybody has them, but not everybody thinks about them because they don't have to. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 10th. It is day 10 of Plan As You Go, where I show how I use my bullet journal, my Erin Condren horizontal, and my power sheets in tandem for an entire month. I'm feeling a little bit better today. I'm still a little sore. I'm still a little nauseated. I'm still run down, but I am not in as much pain as I was in yesterday, which is a good thing because I need to do some stuff today and to get caught up. You guys also came through with the questions yesterday and gave me about, 16 of them. At last check, so I'm going to see how many of them I can get through today as I am working. So I'm going to start my power sheets. So I did get our family planning time in last night, and I finished planning out my new content. As for my habits, skincare and the 100-day project, but nothing else. And that actually brings me to one of my questions from Shay Arts, who said, when you see something in your daily habits keeps moving from month to month without getting done, like Headspace as an example, why would you keep moving it if you see it's not working for you? I said yesterday in the comments, I was like, well, partly because I'm not good at admitting when something didn't work, but I wanted to give this one more month to see if I would do it. Most likely next month I will be pulling it out because it's just not happening for me. As for the gym, the reason that hasn't happened is because we haven't had time to go get that signed up yet. Morning pages may be something I decide not to do. After all, just because I've been having so much trouble getting up in the morning, I'm not sure yet. So yeah, generally I give them at least a couple of months, and then if it doesn't work for me, then I will drop them. It's just taken a little while to let go of this one. So the receipt system, getting ready for taxes, that's going to be something that happens today. I think that may be the only big thing that happens today, but that is definitely something I'm going to be working on. I have another appointment that I need to add today. Katie's bite is off by a little bit. One of Katie's teeth has been really aching because of the new veneer that's on, and so Katie has a dentist appointment this afternoon to go in and adjust that so that the pain will hopefully ease up. I've got taxes prep and the receipt system on here. The other thing I need to work on is filming for a special project that is due on Friday. So I'm going to just put that kind of big. I should probably wash towels today too. Putting in this thing that says film project, it brings up a couple of different questions that you guys asked that are kind of related to each other. One is from Amber Lilly, who said, as someone with a public or semi-public planner, how do you keep track of things you want to keep private? I'm not angling for hints on your topics. I share my planner with my family and my accountability partner. It has done so much good towards helping me stick to certain medical things I need to do, but I want to start tracking a few personal projects, and I'm not sure how to do that separately from my planner. Maybe a side notebook. I'm just curious as to how you are managing your projects that aren't ready to be announced yet. And the second question is from Allison, who said, I keep my planners forever, memories or hoarder, haha, and have gone back to them to find out when something happened. With your new secret projects going on during Plan As You Go, do you plan on going back and adding the notes to your planner later? Do you have somewhere else where you are keeping track of projects? I feel there are weeks I go back and add things later, so certain information is not out for anyone to see on my desk. I feel like these questions are both kind of about the same idea. I have a couple of different things that I do. One, I used to blur a lot of stuff out when I would post pictures on Instagram. I don't do that anymore. With podcast interviews, as you can see here, I just don't write the person's name in, and I may go back and write it in later. Or I come up with like code names or just things that I'll remember what they are, but you may not know necessarily what they are, or I have them written down somewhere else. The projects I'm working on now, one of them requires a lot of planning. The other one doesn't yet. It will, but it doesn't quite yet. By the time I do need to start planning it out, I will be able to talk about it. But this other one, I just have a notebook that I use for like sketching plans out, and I don't really need to keep track of any of that long term. Like I don't need to be able to look back on it. I'll be able to look at this and say, okay, that's when I was doing that. Plus, I do a lot of my future planning in my Google Calendar, and that's not something you see. It's a combination. Also, if there's something I've put in my bullet journal or in my planner that I need to put in there that I don't want to have on the internet, I'll put a Post-it note over it. Or I just don't open to that page. Like I will edit out flipping through my planner to another page. If it shows that page, I'll just cut it out when I'm editing. So there's a lot of different ways that I do it. But ultimately, if it's something I need to have in my planner that I can't show, I'll either write it in like these podcast interviews after I'm done, or I will cover it up. Those are my main things. Not too worried about it. One other thing before I leave my Erin Condren, I'm also trying to think, do I need to meal plan? That's crooked. That's really crooked. Oh my God. I wonder if I can fix this while I'm answering Rebecca's question. I don't know if I can. It's been in here for a while. Rebecca asked, how do you decide on the size required to make the task to scale? This is going to rip. To the size it will take. Not sure if that makes sense. Like 2 lines equal 2 hours or whatever. I don't. Oh God. This was a problem. Will I be able to restick this? I'm going to make it work. I don't really have like a specific system. It's the way I look at it is it's more visual for me. So instead of like 2 lines equals 2 hours or whatever the case may be, to me it's more like how big is it in relation to the other stuff on the planner. So it doesn't matter how big, that's better. I feel better now. It doesn't matter how big it is on its own as much as how big it is comparatively. So as an example, here, this film project is the biggest thing compared to all of these other things. This and this have the same size, so that means they need to take up the same amount of time each day. No, it's just relative to how much time I'm spending on other stuff in a given day. I have no idea if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to move to my bullet journal now. I did take a painkiller last night. No surprise there. And then Diane asked me, I feel like there's a lot of concern and stereotypes around pain pills with the media covering the opioid crisis so often. Do you get any negative comments or concerns from friends and family? Any advice for handling that? I don't really get negative concerns from my friends or family, but part of that's because I'm so open with talking about my kidney disease and how it affects me, so they understand. The negative comments and concerns I get are from myself. I stress out about it. And on top of that, because of the way that my insurance system handles pain medication, I have to basically justify it to my doctor on the regular, because the doctor who prescribes my pain medication is my primary doctor, because that's how they do it. My nephrologist, who handles all my kidney stuff and is much more aware of how my kidney problems impact me, is not the one who prescribes the painkillers. My husband has actually been the one who reminds me that the reason I get the painkillers is so I can function, and I don't take them all the time. I probably could take them a lot more than I do, but I don't because I worry about them. It's a constant battle. The thing that really infuriates me about all this talk about the opioid crisis is that it doesn't take into account the fact that there are people who legitimately need their painkillers to survive each day because of chronic pain, because of chronic illness and disease. It sucks. It really sucks. This whole conversation around painkillers and chronic pain and opioids and all of that really, really sucks. So I don't have a lot of good advice because it's something I struggle with too. Today's doodle is Gary. Denise asked me if I got the status on my fistula. Not yet. Still waiting for the ultrasound. I don't know if I have to get it after my appointment next month or what, but it feels, you can't really see it very well, but it's getting girthier, so maybe it's going to be good. I don't know yet. I'm going to do a sideways doodle for Gary. Melissa asked, how do you plan for the future knowing you have a chronic condition that may get worse? Context, I have a chronic condition and I can see massive variation and from day to day, but I'm also very conscious that over time my condition will deteriorate, which I have experienced, and I'm only 22. Previously, whenever I made plans for what I wanted to do in the future, my health has gotten in the way. It has knocked me back and prevented me from planning and putting things into action, even though there is so much I want to achieve in the future. I really want to do my PhD and become a specialist in my field, but I also want to have children, enjoy my life now, etc., etc. I feel like I'm running on a very tight time frame for everything, which I can't keep on top of because of fatigue, but I also don't want to put steps into action in case I can't do them, be this planning to do a short course, attending an event next month, or the bigger things in my life. Diane had asked a question similar to this in my Facebook group, Llama's Love Lettering, recently, and I didn't have a good answer for her there either, and part of that is because I have had a really fatalistic view of my life because my parents died in their 40s, and I have the same kidney disease that killed my dad, and so there's a part of me that worries that I'm going to hit my 40s, which is next year because I'm 39 now, and I don't know what the future is going to hold or if I'm going to even make it past my 40s, and it's hard for me to even imagine what that might look like. So it's difficult for me to even think about the future because of that. But on top of that, like, there are days where I am exhausted and I wonder if I'm going to feel like this forever. When I got the news that if I have to wait for a cadaver transplant instead of getting a living donor, if I can't find a living donor, that my wait is going to be 10 plus years when I go on the list. And I'm not even on the list yet because I am inactive on the list right now because my kidney function is a little too high to be on the list. When I heard 10 plus years, that horrified me because that means at the earliest, I'm going to be in my 50s when I get a kidney transplant, which means the next 10 years, I'm going to be feeling like this and worse. And so that horrifies me. Whoops. You know, there's a lot of things that scare me, and it's hard for me to think into the future. But some of the best advice I've gotten from people has been, I love how that turned out, by the way, except for the one fuck up. The best advice I have gotten from people has been to do the best you can each day, because nobody knows what their life is going to look like 10 years from now, 5 years from now. You might be perfectly healthy and still you might get into a car accident, or you may have a sudden illness. There may be something in your body you don't know about yet. There's all sorts of things that can happen. You don't know if you're going to be alive in 10 years, whether you're sick now or not. So you might as well just take it day by day and just work towards the things you want to work towards. And if something that you really want, like getting your PhD, then start working towards it, you know, even if you're exhausted. Now, be realistic with the way you feel now, and, you know, don't commit to things you can't follow through on now because of how you're feeling. But at the same time, don't decide to not try for things because of all the what ifs. Because everybody has them, but not everybody thinks about them because they don't have to. Try not to let those thoughts stop you from trying things while trying to be realistic with how you're feeling in the moment. That's really vague. I have no idea if that helps. Today's lettering is Leafy Sea Dragon, which sounds like a pet I want to catch in WoW. Melissa asked, how do you deal with constant exhaustion? I think I may have chronic fatigue syndrome or something similar that causes me pain and fogginess when I try to do a simple chore. Is there a trick to it, or am I just going to have to push through it? Man, I wish that there was a trick to it that I knew about, but I don't. I just have to push through it. And there are days that I just can't, so I don't. And I try to be nice to myself. That's actually something I'm working on, is being nicer to myself on the days I can't push through, because there's more of them lately. You know, you may want to work on getting more sleep when you can get more sleep. Not that that will necessarily fix everything, but that's one of the things my therapist is working on with me, is helping me get better sleep, because that might give me at least a little bit of energy back. You just do the best that you can. It kind of goes back to the last question I answered. Do the best that you can with the energy that you have. Absolutely log and keep track of everything so you can show it to your doctors, because often, you know, just telling them doesn't like illustrate it the same way that like a record will illustrate it. And get help if you can with things that maybe you don't need to be doing. My husband is constantly asking me what he can do to help me, because he realizes that I won't ask for help even if I need it, because I'm not good at asking for help. I'm really terrible at it. So he will ask me, and then I will sometimes say, yes, you can help me with this. Like, can you bring the laundry in? Can you do this? I can't stand up right now. Can you do this? And so getting help is really helpful. But in general, it's a combination of asking for help, pushing through it, realizing when you can't do something, you just have to be nice to yourself about it. Those three things. And then keeping track so you can show your doctor. Those are all the best tips I can give you, but none of them are really tricks to get through it. They're just sort of ways to cope with it. All right, I managed to get a few things checked off yesterday. I did almost everything that was on my list. That's not true. I did many of the things on my list, but not all of them. So today's list is going to be a little bit longer because I don't have any appointments today and I'm feeling a little bit better. Well, I have one appointment, the dentist one. I keep forgetting about that one. Jessica asked me if I miss doing separate lists for work, home, and church. Nah, not really. Maybe it's because I'm not board president anymore, but my church stuff is so small that it's not anywhere near as big as like some of the other stuff I've been doing. That's been okay, and I feel like the rest of it's all blurring together anyway, so yeah. I'm not really missing it right now. Jessica also asked, when you say notes from your meeting, I'm assuming you mean my social justice notes. Are you talking about church newsletter? No, we have a meeting once a month or so. And it's basically just the notes from that meeting to send to the people who were either there or who are on the committee who weren't there, to like, as both a reminder of the things that we decided to do so people can remember to do them, or just to let people know what we talked about who weren't there. Throwing things. Wendy asked, what's with the llamas? Drama llama. It became like a unofficial mascot years and years ago in Planners Gone Wild. It used to be Aaron Condren Fans Gone Wild Uncensored, and that was where I was originally asked to start making my videos, and that's where my handle from Instagram came from, and the name of my lettering series, Llamas Love Lettering, all that came from that. So yeah, drama llamas. Yep. Nat Brat asked, I am looking for a planner, a bound weekly planner with a vertical layout that is dated. I don't mind if it has the hours, but I don't want it to be the only thing that fits for the day. Do you know of any planners like this? I'm thinking off of the top of my head, although I could be wrong about what exactly you're looking for. Two that come right to mind are the Inkwell Press classic layout, or the vertical layout from Yellow Paper House, where there is a lot more open space. If you're looking for bound like a book, I'll need to think a little bit more on that because I don't have a lot of experience with those. I have two questions, one from Catherine, who said, how do you juggle not carrying work with you everywhere and all the time when you use your EC and your bullet journal for both? She's questioning whether or not to have her work and her personal stuff separated into two separate planners. And then Joe Cora says, what advice do you have on how you manage both your EC and your bullet journal? So they kind of go together. So my advice for both is, if you need a separation between work and personal, you could separate it with two separate planners, or you could separate it with different pages. Like you could have a spread for work, spread for personal, or you could do separate sections, divide your bullet journal in half and do half and half. I don't separate my work, my personal, and all those other things because they're all part of my life each day. I also work from home, so that's part of it. And my work, I don't have like specific work hours. I try to work within a specific work frame, but it bleeds over. What I actually do, the most separated that I have is in my Google Calendar. I have a family calendar that my kids and my husband have access to that has everything going on in our personal lives, but all of my work appointments are on a separate calendar that I can turn off or on, so I can look at things differently. I also have two separate sets of Google Calendars, one that is my personal and one that is work. I've shared my work with my personal so I can look at everything together, but when I'm making adjustments to my work stuff, it's just work. But in these planners, I use them as I need them. The nice part about both of them and the way I use them is it's flexible. I can emphasize work or personal or both depending on the day and depending on what I need. I'm okay with having there be a blurred boundary between work and personal and a blurred boundary between my two planners. They can adapt. The real thing is, for both of you in general, and for anybody who's wondering how to utilize both together, is make a list of what you want in your planner. Think about, are you okay with them being together or them needing to be separated? And once you make a list, then look at the planners and try and figure out how you can make them work for the list as opposed to making the list work for the planners. Think about the stuff you need to do first before how you're going to plan it out. A lot of the times people are like, oh, I love this planner. Let me see how I can make it work for, how I can fit it into my life. You want your life to be the thing that dictates how you plan, not your planners to dictate how you live your life. I hope that makes sense. I'm planning on doing a full-blown video on this next month where I have some more time to kind of expand on it, by the way. One thing I forgot to mention in my EC is I need to swing by Target today, and I'm thinking about just doing it when I go to pick my kid up from school. Speaking of my kids, Kelsey asked, do either of your kids watch or show interest in your channel? And second, do you have any tips for using they, them pronouns? Both of my kids are somewhat interested in my channel. I don't think because they care about planners, but because they're just interested to see how they show up in it and telling their friends their mom does YouTube. I don't know. Neither of them, they watch plenty of YouTube, but neither of them are super into what I talk about. They're interested in it for my sake and for the sake of themselves feeling like their mom is cool, which I think is really funny. Secondly, tips for using they, them pronouns. I'm not as great at it. I'm pretty good at it here on YouTube because I have the power of editing my videos, but in person with my kid, I am still sloppy. I'm trying, but I'm still struggling. The advice I got from my kid is to just keep trying, because the trying is what matters, and they notice. They notice when you try. So just keep trying to do your best. It's hard to retrain your brain, but if they know that you're trying and you're not just dismissing them, that goes a long way. And then the last question, and I'm actually getting through all of them today, so I'm sorry if it feels like I've dumped right into your ears, is from Aaron, who said, what do you think about the idea of Pet Sematary being a commentary on our society's inability to deal with death and grief, especially when communicating it to children? As I was watching it, the sociologist in me felt there was a paper to be written about this idea and how the movie portrays it. I agree with you. I think that as somebody who has grieved very heavily, I absolutely think that there's a lot of commentary on grief and how we deal with it. I've always felt that Pet Sematary, the book, and now the movie, has been one of Stephen King's two kind of really strong works on the dealings with grief. The other one is Bag of Bones. I feel like Pet Sematary shows how when we grieve, sometimes we can make some really, really terrible decisions because we want the grief to stop. It hurts and we don't want to deal with it anymore. We want to just push it to the side. That it's all well and good to talk about death being natural and death being a part of life until you're faced with it, with somebody you love, especially a child, and then you want to find a way to kind of deal with it. I remember when my dad died, I was jealous of people who believed in God because I'm an atheist. I was jealous of them because they were able to feel like they went on to a better place or whatever the case may be. And for me, I didn't have any of that, and I wished that I could believe that so that I could have some comfort, and I didn't. And so that was really, it struck a chord with me. Bag of Bones, it shows how grief can inspire you to make great decisions, or it can drive you insane. Literally. I think there's a lot to be said there. It's probably more than I want to get into in this video because a lot of people haven't seen this movie, but I think there is a lot to dig into, and this may be a podcast topic as well, who fucking knows. There's a lot to dig into with the idea of grief and how it is difficult to face it a lot of the time. My church does a series called the Death Positive series, talking about green burial and looking at death as a natural part of life and trying to remove some of the fear of death and instead have open and honest conversations about it. And I have not gone to any of those because, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think I'm ready for conversations like that. I still carry a lot of grief and trauma with me from losing my parents. I gotta finish making my list. Talking and making my list is difficult. Holy shit. All right, so there's my list. I'm going to do my best to work on it today. I appreciate all of the questions. If you have any questions for me to answer in my video, then please use the word question in your comments so I can find it. It's the easiest way for me to do it. I would like to take this back to the questions I had earlier about managing two separate planners, balancing work and personal life in your planners. I would love to hear from you in the comments what your planner system is, how you balance the different things you need to plan, and how you use your planners, whether one, whether multiple, together. I just love some tips for people who are looking for a good way to balance things like their work and their personal life or different aspects of their life, whether they're using one planner or multiple, how you set that up. So just tell people about your planner system and how you make it work for you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in tomorrow's Plan As You Go video.